So would you recommend Dark Souls? I'm keen on buying, but it's still so expensive. So I would not actually recommend... Have you played any Dark Souls? I wouldn't really recommend Dark Souls 3 for your first time run. Unless you're looking for an easier approach. It doesn't clip, it's actually good? Okay, I'm just worried that it, like, when I shout into the mic, it's like this, bam, you know, this sound that pierces in. I hate that so much. But I'm trying really hard not to have that happen. If you've not played Dark Souls before, I really feel like you should start, if you want the actual experience. Dark Souls 1, to me, has been the crowning achievement of all Dark Souls. You haven't played at all? Okay, so really it's up to you how you want to approach it. Dark Souls 1 is fantastic at being the genuine Dark Souls. It's still hard as fuck. So you got that Demon Souls quality of difficult. And then on top of that, it is Dark Souls, so you've got a little bit of a more quality. There's some better quality of life stuff in there that is really, really nice. Really, really nice. Never completed a full Dark Souls game, only Dark Souls 1. Dark Souls 1 is the genuine experience. You will not feel the same way over any other Dark Souls than Dark Souls 1, the first one. It really encaptures that feeling of needing to be good, but just the genuine approach of, like, you can't really out-level anything, and you can't really, you don't need to build for anything specific. You can take on everybody without needing any kind of a specific build. And it will still be a challenge no matter what build you run with. Plus, there are some really cool builds that make you feel very, very strong against certain bosses. And that's really fun, too. It feels like it has just more like of an RPG feel to it. It's got the Dark Souls. It's just genuinely Dark Souls. The way that Dark Souls is portrayed, Dark Souls 1 does it the best. Dark Souls 2 is a step back for the PvE, but it's a bit of a step up for the PvP. And so that's kind of debatable whether or not it's good Souls or not. Honestly, I think it's okay. I had a lot of fun with Dark Souls 2. But really, I only played it once, and I don't really feel compelled to do it again. Because as a PvE Dark Souls, it's just kind of middle of the road. It's just kind of okay. It's not as challenging as Dark Souls 1. And there's a lot of over-leveling you can do very easily to make the bosses even less of a threat. But at the same time, you get a lot of different builds because of that. Because every build, even the weakest build, can still pretty easily pummel a lot of bosses and stuff like that. So Dark Souls 2, I really wouldn't get into it unless you're into the PvP. If you really like the PvP of Dark Souls, then 2 is definitely the best. I like to think. Bloodborne, if you got a PS4, Bloodborne is a very, very good alternative to the Souls series. It's a very nice entry into the Souls-like series. The only negative thing I have about Bloodborne is I hate having to farm for blood vials. And I do have to do that, because I heal a shitload. I get hit a ton. And I need to heal a ton. That's just how it is with me in these fucking Souls games. I can never not get hit. But it is a very, very good game otherwise, and it's very fun, aggressive. It's a very aggressive game. So now, you've got all these options. Where does Dark Souls 3 stand? As of this DLC, including this DLC experience so far, which we're basically done with, we only got one boss left. This DLC, the other DLC, Ashes of Ariandel, and then the base game. Really, the base game is what we're talking about. Because this DLC, both DLCs, really are quite a bit of a letdown. In Dark Souls 1, the DLC was really, really good in Dark Souls 1. Really good. Artorias, I forget his name now. It's something Knight Artorias. The Knight Artorias. The DLC for that guy in Dark Souls 1 is tremendously awesome. Great bosses, great visual, great environment. It just looks and feels fucking great. And beating up on Artorias is one of the funnest, highest points of my gaming career is playing against that guy. Not so much because he was difficult, but because he was unique and had the fucking baller-ass moveset. Really, really cool stuff. Dark Souls 3, the DLC is really, really lame. And I mean really lame as in it doesn't expand a whole lot. It does have a couple of extra like weapons and things, which is cool. But the bosses are not amazing. Well, they're visually amazing, but honestly, the way that I'm beating them seems kind of just, I don't know. It felt like the way I beat the dragon. Felt like the same way I just beat the prince. And then this was a boss that we just did. This is technically a boss. It's really just an invasion NPC. It's just an invasion NPC that is like tuned up to 11 on its defenses rather than every other NPC, which is like dodge out of the way after 2 hits. This one will like auto parry and shit like that. So they just upped the difficulty a bit by making it more defensive. But the base game of Dark Souls 3 is actually pretty good. The base game. It has a really cool progression to it. It's got a lot of Bloodborne quality of life features. And so, because of that, it really pushes us up there as a good Dark Souls game. Dark Souls 3. You don't need the DLC, for sure. You're not really missing that much with the DLC. There are some cool bosses that visually look great, but actually fighting them, the dragon was kind of cool. I'll give props to the dragon. The dragon was actually pretty cool. And fighting the dragon took a little bit of work, but I mean, once you realize what you got to do and you recognize the visual cues, I mean, that's just how it is. Part of me saying I don't like Dark Souls 3 so much right now anymore is because I've ran through it a bunch of times. This has got to be my 6th playthrough of this game, even though it's the first one of this DLC. And I feel like I've done this over and over and over. You know, I've done this a lot of times now. We've been here for a while. I'm kind of tired of it, so I'm being a little hard on Dark Souls 3. Dark Souls 3, though, is a lot more approachable because of those quality of lives. And the challenge is still here. It's not quite Dark Souls 1 level of difficulty because you can pretty well over-level yourself in Dark Souls 3. But that's good. That's good, especially if you're new to Dark Souls. This is a good Dark Souls if you want an easier, kind of a lighter a more consumable Dark Souls. This is definitely what Dark Souls 3 is. More market ready. You know, more people could pick this up and be good at it and have fun with it. And it's still, at its core, it's still Dark Souls. Absolutely. It's still a Souls game. 100%. It's just, it doesn't quite have the flair, the gusto, the meat, the RPG. It just, they really toned down a lot of those things so it could be more casual friendly. And that's fine. It's just, it leaves a little bit more of a shallow impression once you go through it. But the first time you go through Dark Souls 3, you'll have a great time for sure. So I would definitely 100% say Dark Souls 3 is worth a playthrough. Don't get it for a lot of money though. If it's full price, don't get it at full price. I mean, unless you're a Souls fan, you can get it at full price. But right now, I would 100% suggest Dark Souls 1, although it sounds like you've already played it. In which case, if you have, definitely give Dark Souls 3 a shot, but don't try not to do full price. Get like $40, even $40. You get any discount. Any discount you can get, go for it. Any discount. 10% discount or more, do it. It's worth it. It is a fine, fun Dark Souls game that I fully enjoyed. This is the only Dark Souls game I've ever ran through more than one time, including Bloodborne. I played all the Souls games except Demon's Souls. Although I have it and I could run through it, I haven't felt like doing it. But all the other Soul games I have run through only one time, and I kind of want to go do Dark Souls 1 again. But really, Dark Souls 3 is the only one I've gone through multiple times. So, I mean, that's a pretty fucking huge endorsement. This is one of my go-to games when I don't know or want to play anything else. I just fire up Dark Souls 3 and I run a character whose build I haven't run yet. I have a dual-wielding guy I just started up. I haven't played dual-wielding before. And I'm going to go try and do that. Maybe at some point I'll come back and do that character. But after this DLC, I'll probably take a break. Because, I mean, this DLC is really not that great. Again, Dark Souls 3, definitely worth checking it out. Yeah, definitely worth checking out. 100%. I wouldn't get it for full price if it's actually still expensive as fuck, like you're saying. Just keep waiting. Just keep waiting, or try and find a cheap place. I don't know, a discount or a cheap place. Like, I don't know really where you can go to get shit cheap. I do GameFly. I would get it used if you could do a used copy of DS3. But I mean, if you're on PC, which is what I'm guessing you're on, you're gonna need to get like a digital or something. I feel like this whole rant should be a YouTube video. I'll probably make it a highlight or something. I don't know. Everybody, I'm pretty sure everyone knows my stances. Although my stance on Dark Souls 3 was that I really love Dark Souls 3. But now that I have done both DLCs, I actually like Dark Souls 3 less now. I was really holding out for this latest DLC to be like the second coming of Jesus. Not the first, but the second. For the Dark Souls series, this was supposed to be what Old Hunters did for Bloodborne. That was supposed to happen with this Ring City DLC. I don't feel like it's happened yet. It's got some cool shit to it, don't get me wrong, but I just don't feel like there is enough robust areas and stuff to do. And just things that kind of capture the imagination. And there's a lot of bullshit in the DLC. There's just a lot of bullshit in it. The angels that don't insta-kill, but like they're just turrets that sit there and you can't kill them directly. You have to find a little leech, and they're hidden somewhere. The guy that summons up a bunch of archers, and there's only one way to get through. Well, maybe there's another way to get through it, but it's all about navigating a thing, and it's not about killing a guy. It's totally not fun. It feels like a QuickTime event almost. You know what I mean? It feels like a stage. Like a moment, like an uncharted segment or something. It's just a set piece, is what it feels like, and that's not Souls. It doesn't feel very Dark Souls to me. A set piece, I don't know. Anyways, that's my take on it. I mean, I could talk about this shit for days, and I typically do. I love ranting about video games, you know that. I just love video games. I play them to fucking death. This has been one of my favorite series, and this is definitely one of my favorite games. I'm not disappointed in buying this game at near full price. Because I do GameFly, I actually got this for like $40, and then I bought the season pass. So the base game plus season pass ended up being about the same price as a full brand new original copy of this game. And because I ordered from GameFly immediately, as soon as this game released, I got a fresh, brand new copy of Dark Souls 3 from GameFly that nobody touched, but I got to buy it at a used game price of $40. Plus, I can negate the shipping and handling with the $5 GameFly coupon that I typically have laying around because they give it to me every 2 or 3 months. So, yeah, I mean, this is the only game in recent memory that I spent full release money on. The only other one I did was Street Fighter V, and I wholly regret that decision. Just insanely regret that decision.